Thank you. So welcome, everyone. This Township of Selwyn Committee of Adjustment meeting will come to order. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note that minutes. We are going to go now to our planner to announce the purpose of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act in order to consider 6 applications today for relief from bylaw 2009-021, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. The prescribed notices of the public meetings or hearings were provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 60-meter radius of the subject properties. Ministries and agencies were circulated via email. The subject properties are also posted with a sign advertising the public hearings. The notices are also available on the Township's website. The notice circulations complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of Township of Selwyn before the variances are granted, person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn on the proposed variances, you must make written requests to the Secretary of the Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn by fax, email, or Dropbox. Our first application today is for 1977 Pinehurst Avenue. This is A32-23. The purpose of the application is in order to permit a 43 square meter addition to an existing dwelling. It's about approximately 463 square feet. The variances requested are to reduce the high water mark setback from 30 meters to 10 plus or minus 10.9 meters, and to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 3 meters to 0 meters for 2 existing open decks, as shown on the site plan survey dated October 25th, 2023. For this application, we have comments from ORCA, Tonabee Region Conservation Authority, stating that permits will be required as part of the building approval. Hiawatha First Nation has commented that they would recommend an archaeological assessment, and the County of Peterborough Public Works Department has submitted comments of no concern. The ARC assessment is a condition of the approval of the variances. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval. Those are my comments with regard to this application.
Thank you very much. And I understand the agent for the application, Holly Richards Conley, is on the line. Holly, would you like to add anything further to the planner's report?
Just further to what Pierre said, we've had an archaeological assessment done last week and there were no findings on the property, and we'll submit that report with the building permit.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other people that have registered to speak in favor of this application or against it, Deputy Clerk?
There's no one else here to speak in support or in opposition of this application, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll bring it to the committee. Are there any comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to A33-23, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A33-23. This is for 1740 Poplar Point Road. This application is for in order to permit the replacement of the existing dwelling with a 909.5 square foot or 84.5 roughly square meter dwelling, including the addition of a 563.98 square foot or 552 square meter open deck. The variances requested are to reduce the high water marks setback from 30 meters to 19.87 meters to a dwelling, and to reduce the high water mark setback from 30 meters to 16.5 meters to an open deck. The Tonabee Region Conservation Authority has stated that ORCA permits will be required in conjunction with the building permits for the proposed development. Hiawatha First Nation generally recommends that we go through the prescribed checklist for archaeological assessment and where disturbance is noted that we request an archaeological assessment. And the county E&D engineering and design or public works has submitted comments of no concern. In this particular case, due to the minimal addition, expansion beyond the existing footprint of the existing dwelling, I'm not recommending an archaeological assessment for this particular project. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval.
Thank you very much. And I understand that there is someone on the line, Edmund Eldex, is that so?
Perhaps we can move on to see if the agent has any comments.
Oh.
Just waiting on, and
Okay, yes, sorry, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, do you have anything you wish to add? At the mic, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can advise that I have considered the staff report together with my client, and we have no issues. We also support Mr. Lundberg's recommendation that an archaeological assessment is not required. The idea is to build in the area that's already disturbed. If committee members are conversant with the property, there are some topographical challenges. So we're cognizant of same in the building location. We're not coming any closer to the water. We're respecting that setback as well. Relative to this application, the existing holding tank would be removed and replaced with an appropriate septic system. We've shown an area where it can be generally located, and I'm satisfied it can, and it's also set back 30 meters from the high water mark as well. So some important gains to the property, and I would be available to respond to any questions should they arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And sorry about that. Is Edward Eldebs on the line?
no, he's appeared to have left, so we'll just proceed, and if he comes back on, I'll let you know.
All right, so, and there's no one else in favor or against?
No one else here for this application.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to A3423, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A34-23, this is for 2154 Fire Route 20. This application is for removing an existing storage garage facility and replacing it with a new 65.4 square meter garage at a new site, approximately 700 square feet. The requested variance is to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 17.77 meters to a replacement garage. We have comments from engineering and design, County Public Works of no concern. Again, the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority stating that an ORCA permit will be required in conjunction with the required township building permit. And also Hiawatha First Nation is making comments again to make sure that we comply with the archaeological assessment checklist. In this particular instance, the location is bedrock, granite bedrock at the location of the new replacement garage. So an archaeological assessment is not recommended for this particular application. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests for a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval.
Thank you very much. And I understand that Claudio and Rosemary Rosada, who are the applicants, are online. Is there anything you wish to add?
No, I think everything is correct. It is on granite, so yeah. And we are removing the existing workshop that's a little closer to the water, about 12 feet closer to the water. So we'll be actually going a little further away from the water on this project.
Okay, thank you very much. Deputy Clerk, was there anyone else who registered to speak for or against this application?
We have no one else here for this application, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to A3523, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A35-23, this is for 1180 Center Line. This application is to permit a 96 square meter detached garage, about 1,000 square feet or just a little bit over. The relief being requested is to increase the height of an accessory detached garage from 6 meters to 8 meters. Conservation Authority has submitted comments of no concern for this one. Hiawatha First Nation, again, recommending archaeological assessment in accordance with provincial checklist. And engineering and design, or County Public Works has submitted again comments of no concern. In this particular instance, being that the location of the garage is on an undisturbed portion of the property, an archaeological assessment is recommended. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance, and I do recommend the application for approval.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, is there anyone for or against registered for this application?
No one has registered to speak for this application. We don't have anyone in attendance.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any comments? Sorry, Mr. Block.
Thank you to you, Chair. The second is with reference to secondary units. Is there a zoning requirement to change to have a secondary unit? Is that built into the current bylaw?
So second unit you need to go it's built into the zoning regulations, and you need to apply for a license in order to establish a second unit. In this particular instance, refresh my memory here, if that was this particular instance this is not occurring. That's our next application. This is 1180 Center Line. This is just a detached garage.
Yeah.
Our next application
All right.
on the next location for 1240 Center Line deals with second units.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, same.
No questions on the 1180 then? All right, we'll move on to a 3720. Oh, sorry.
Madam Chair, Mr. Edmonds just come on. I just want to see if he has any questions. That was in regards to application 3323 for Poplar Point Road.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Edmond?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. we
Sorry,
can-
I'm just having some trouble with my audio, but I was coming on just to understand what the request is for. There was a PDF sent to me, but it didn't provide any details on that application. I didn't see anything in the PDF.
Sorry, which one were we back on again now?
A 3323.
33.
Yeah.
So the requested variances were to reduce the high water mark setback from 30 meters to 19.87 meters to a dwelling, and to reduce the high water mark setback from 30 meters to 16.5 meters to an open deck.
Mr. Edmonds?
And is that to build a brand new building on the property?
That's correct.
Okay, I don't have any objections.
All right, thank you very much. No further questions? Hearing none. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to A 3723, please.
Thank you, Madam. This is for 1240 Center Line. In this particular instance, the applicant is looking to legitimize a second unit location above an existing detached garage. The garage is existing, so we're just looking to establish the second floor of the detached garage as a second unit. The variances requested are to increase the distance between a second unit building and a principal dwelling from 30 meters to 38.04 meters. So just increasing the separation distance as permitted, normally permitted under our zoning bylaw. And also to increase the area of the second unit in a detached dwelling in the RU zone from 60% of the footprint area of the principal dwelling to 99.9% of the footprint area of the principal dwelling, which then allows a 1,384 square foot or 128.5 square meters second unit area. For this one, the Conservation Authority has stated that a permit will be required in conjunction with township building permit. Hiawatha, again, just recommending we follow the checklist in regard to archaeological assessments, and engineering design has provided again comments of no concern. Again, with the as an existing structure, there'll be no further excavation required, so no an archaeological assessment is not recommended for this particular application. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I do recommend this application for approval.
Thank you very much. So in this particular case, is there anyone that's registered for or against this application?
We have no one here for this application, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And do you want to pose your question now?
Posing the question, I got ahead of the property that was next door to it. Yeah, so require licensing after this to make it illegal. Secondary.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. So the second unit license is a condition of the approval of the minor variance.
Any other questions? I see none. At this point in time, I would like to ask the committee for a mover and seconder for the applications that we heard to date. Moved by Mr. Henry, seconded by Mr. Black, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to A 3623, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The A 36-23 is for property known as 19 to 25 Hampton Lane. This is part of the Triple T Lilacs development. The developer has come to us to change the development proposal for this particular lot, just to better reflect market conditions for marketability of various types of units. They're changing from an apartment style buildings to townhouses. So there'll be 3 new townhouses for a total of 20 units, as opposed to what was previously going to be an additional 40 units in addition to the 20 unit building that's already been constructed. So there's a number of variances that are needed with respect to our zoning bylaw. I can go through each one of those separately, or I can just summarize them. Those would be
Summarize.
just summarize it.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, there's one relief just to reduce the unit sizes, like the exclusive use areas for each of the units. We've got some front yard and side yard setback reliefs to accommodate the proposed design that's been forwarded by Aside Architects, and Neil Campbell is here. He can speak a little bit more about the design when we get to Neil. We've also got some rear yard setback relief to accommodate some proposed decks that will be attached on the rear side. And we've got some lot coverage and building separation reliefs to accommodate the proposed building plans. For this particular application, we have 2 people have submitted comments in favor of the application, being Philip Henry and Reed Brownscombe, and 2 people have submitted comments against or in opposition to the application, being Dorothy Cuvier and Michael Paris. The Autonomy Region Conservation Authority has submitted comments of no concern. Hiawatha First Nation, again, recommending following provincial checklist, and where disturbance is needed, then an archaeological assessment should be requested. And Engineering and Design, County Public Works has submitted comments of no concern. On the archaeological assessment component, the site is already been heavily graded and disturbed, so an archaeological assessment is not recommended for this particular variance application. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. I do recommend this for approval. I would state just a little bit further for those listening that we are only discussing the variances at this committee of adjustment meeting. The development right for row housing or townhousing is established by the R3 multiple residential zoning for the particular property. So what's before the committee of adjustment is strictly the variances that are before the committee today.
All right, thank you very much. And I understand that the agent, Neil Campbell, is here. Is there anything you would like to add to what the planner has said? Please take the mic.
I did state I've used the 4 tests of minor variance, and I am recommending this for approval, I hope.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. My name's Neil Campbell. I'm architect with Side Architects out of Peterborough. So we've been on this project for a number of years now. We were the architects originally for the 3 20-unit multi-unit residential buildings The first one, phase one was done. It's 20 units, it's 3 stories. We've all seen the changes in the market over the last couple of years. So Triple T reached out to us a few months back with an idea to go with the townhouse designation within the R3 zone. We had a look at it. We're working with what is largely in place already, meaning the site servicing is in place to support the development, and curbs are in place and so forth. So we came up with a scheme that allows for essentially what's 3 building blocks that translate to 22-story townhouses. Overall, what we're achieving here is what's quite positive for that smaller neighborhood within the Lilac development. So we now have all the single family residential houses that have been built over the last couple of years. We have a 20-unit, 3-story multi-unit residential building, and then the addition of the row housing or the townhouses, we think introduces a good mix into what's feeling more and more like a neighborhood. So I understand there's a number of people that have called in, and I make myself available to answer any questions for the committee or for people that have called in.
Thank you very much. I understand that is Reed Branscombe on the line? Mr. Branscombe.
I am. I have no questions pertaining to this application as it stands before the council.
May I ask your address, sir?
I'm at 25 Irons Avenue in Lakefield, Ontario.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you. I understand the next person is Bev Coe. Bev, can you please give your address to when you make your comment for the record?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure that Bev Coe is available. We can move on to the next, please.
All right, Paul Van Blericombe. Are you available to make a comment or a question?
Hi, Paul, can you unmute your mic?
Hello.
Hi, Paul, you're unmuted. Go ahead. Okay, Madam Chair, perhaps we could move on to the next one, please.
Michael Paris and Rosemary and Paris. Are you on the line?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
I can, if you can please give me your address.
Yes, I'm at 37 Charlton Court in Lakefield, Ontario.
Yes.
And thank you for the clarification. The email was sent on behalf of both my husband and myself, just as one email from the same email address. I understand the committee today is only taking a look at the variances, but I guess I'm not sure if there's any. It doesn't seem like there's much point to making too much of a comment, because it seems like the approval is underway. It's just the variances that are in question. But I would like to make note of the comments about that the architect has said that this is quite positive and a good mix. I think that sort of belies understanding the real estate factors that are in play. I think it belies the idea that the changes made from the proposed condominium blocks to townhouses blocks really undermines and brings into question the way the previous parts of this subdivision have been set up. That is really the only one of the difficulties we see in this change. I understand that, going from 40 units to 20 units seems like a smaller impact, but by introducing homes, by having a neighborhood that's predominantly dominated by homes that are only, 2 bedrooms, changing it to units that are 4 bedrooms plus developed basements, really changes what was sold as the intention of this neighborhood. So I don't think it's fair to say that it's quite positive and that it brings a good mix, and would wonder why, if they wanted to maintain what's here and that if this is such a good neighborhood, why the idea of continuing the types of buildings that are here doesn't happen there. Because at this point, basically listening to the meeting, it sounds like this is most beneficial to the developer, and that it's really just a matter of change that the people in this neighborhood weren't consulted on.
Thank you, and I'm not sure if someone wants to answer that. Would you?
I can speak to it. So as through you, Madam Chair, as it was mentioned, it is introducing a lower density than what was proposed previously. It was looked at in terms of single family at one point. It really didn't allow for the yield that Triple T needs to get in order to, support the infrastructure that's gone into it. In terms of the 4 bedrooms, we're proposing 3 bedrooms in the suites or in the townhouses themselves. As well, it was mentioned basements. Currently, there's 3 building blocks. They're labeled on the drawings: building 1, building 2A and 2B, 2A and 2B being side by side. There are no basements in building 2A and 2B. What we were trying to achieve was that's the character, the character of the buildings. It's that same traditional vernacular that occurs in the single family residences that are on site. And so it has that same look, same peak roofs and so forth, front porches, front yards, modest backyards. So all of those serve the same character of the neighborhood that's been established to date. Same siding, window treatments, and I do want to mention that in terms of the scale of the townhouses themselves, they were allowed to build 3 stories. It was a conscious decision, given the character of Lilac right now, to keep it at 2 stories, to not build oversized units or row housing. So I think that was a pretty significant response that I think serves what the person that's called in's concerns are, keeping it to 2 stories. I think tucks it into something that's very much more in keeping with the character of the single family residential buildings that are on site in terms of scale, in terms of interior square footage and so forth.
Thank you very
much. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you very much. As has been noted, though, that is not something that is taken into consideration by this committee. It is with the minor variances that we deal. So I thank you, Ms. Paris, for your question. And we'll go on now to Jim Nelson. Oh,
sorry, Madam Chair, before going on to Jim, Rosemarie does have her hand up. She just wants a follow-up question.
All right.
Just to follow up, recognizing that this committee isn't looking at aspects beyond the variances, where can people in the neighborhood get more clarification? Because I do appreciate the clarification about it looking consistent and all of that, but how do we find out about other details regarding the change in this development? In other words, things like I don't know, the condo structure for those townhouses, things like that.
Mr. Campbell.
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is Bill Turner, who is here as well, owner of the development, has talked to a number of people having their sales office on site. Do you have any ideas in terms of Bill, in terms of people finding out more on the development, right?
Have to go up
Yeah.
to, yeah. And please keep it short. We are going beyond our
Okay.
scope here.
Sure. Just in response, generally speaking, we didn't want to put the cart before the horse. We're ultimately going to communicate with the whole neighborhood. There will be probably lots of questions. I think the message that's important for everybody is that we designed and developed this community with the idea it was aimed at retired type clientele. And I think some of the concern that I've heard bubbling up from different people in the community is they feel like with the change in building form that it may potentially change, the nature of the development to be something other than a retirement oriented community. And that's simply not the case. We will still market it the same way. Plenty of people appreciate that building form as kind of maybe an in-between, having a standalone individual home and a multi-story type of building. It's a happy in-between where you still have access to front and rear yards and a garage and these types of features. Once we, achieve the things that we need to achieve in order to move forward, we certainly will put together detailed plans for how that standard condominium will operate in relation to the other condominium corporations that are already in existence. And anybody that has questions individually, can certainly reach out and interact with us on that topic. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now we will move on to Jim Nelson and Dorothy Covier. Can't hear you.
Hi, Dorothy, we can't hear you. You're gonna have to unmute.
Can't hear you.
So Dorothy, can you press control 6?
All right,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for
Your
that.
address, please.
18 Irons Avenue, Lakefield.
Okay,
Can I ask first for 3 clarifications?
on what point?
Point number 11 refers to zoning bylaw 4.11.3.2 number 6. To change the maximum lot coverage, but number 6 is for rear yard minimum. So I'm presuming it's another bylaw, number 8, that you're referring to. If I can get that clarified.
Yeah, you're correct. So that was clearly a typo. It should be the next one down. It's the number 8 is the lot coverage.
Point number 12 and 13 refer to section 4.11.3.2.1 number 6, but there is no number 6. It ends at 3. So I'm presuming that's just in there in error, or is it for something else?
Sorry, which one was that again?
4.11.3.2.1.
Yeah, for which variance?
6. There is no number 6.
No, but which variance? 12?
Minimum spatial separation requirements
Yeah,
mentioned in point number 12 and point number 13. Sorry.
yeah, that was probably it probably needs to be deleted as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And I just want to ask another question on regards to the end units. The drawings for the end units of the townhouses indicate the windows, and I just wanted a clarification that it is accurate. Do you need the page numbers?
Yeah, if you have a question about it, sure.
Yes, is it accurate then?
What page numbers? were
Sorry,
they
what are you
reading?
referring to?
I'm referring to pages A 2.2.1, 2.2.2, and 2.2.3. It depicts end units, and I just want to find out if they have the windows as per the drawings.
So through you, Madam Chair, in terms of accuracy, that is where the state of the design is at now. In looking at an end unit, there's a proximity to a property line or what's called a limiting distance. And from that limiting distance, one then has to figure out what allowable openings can you have. It's a percentage. And so it's representative, meaning that that amount of window area is allowable. We think they're in reasonable places. It's gone back and forth between my client and our office. Could there be minor changes? Yes. Is it fixed in stone? No, but I think it's representative. The one piece is there's between building 2A and 2B, essentially those are end units as well facing each other. There won't be as many windows between those two buildings.
There'll be some, but maybe not as many.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just two other points. I guess it was Neil mentioned something about the curbs are all in. We don't have curbs in this development, but I don't know that that's neither here nor there. And the last item I'd just like to clarify is Neil mentioned that buildings 2A and 2B do not have basements, but according to the drawings, they do have basements.
Pardon me? Oh, pardon me. It's building 1 that doesn't have basements. Building 2A
Okay,
and
thank you
2B
very
have
much
basements.
for that.
Pardon me.
Okay. All right, thank you. So then I guess these are my comments. I'd like to make 8 points if I may. And I am opposed for the following reason, that 100% of the proposal is in violation of the zoning bylaws. There's not one single townhouse that meets the zoning bylaw requirements. And it's a complete deviation from the site plan that consisted of the 3 condominium buildings. And I think Rosemary made a point about, different mix as opposed to a retirement community. The traffic patterns will be changed in this development because with the original site plan, the traffic would come in typically from the north off Hampton because you've got your 2 condominiums and your parking lot for the 3rd condominium on the north side of the development. Traffic patterns will most likely change. People will come in off Charlton now and come down Irons and go up Hampton. The next point I would like to make is there's a request for a front yard setback for building 2B unit 13. So that's the townhouse that's adjacent to the last phase 4 house. And that's from 7.5 to 4.6 meters. However, there's a bulb that carries on into that driveway, and that would go partway into that driveway. So I drive a small SUV and I don't think it'll fit in that driveway at all. And I know you're showing pickup trucks there, but with that, you're going to end up with overhang of vehicles onto the street. And if that does occur, of course, it's going to impede snow plowing, garbage removal, and vehicular traffic. Bylaw 4.11.3.2 number 2 indicates a maximum building height of 11 meters. Now, I don't see any request to a deviation of this. However, if you look at 2 different pages of your proposal, you're exceeding the maximum height for buildings 2A and 2B. One of the units will be adjacent to the existing phase 4 detached house, and this same townhouse has a total of 6 variances requested. So you're exceeding the lot or the height here without asking to exceed the height. So it's not mentioned anywhere, but there's an excess. Also, there's a total of 103 zoning bylaw variances requested for 20 townhouses. And that affects between 8 and 10 of the 12 zoning bylaws that apply here. I don't believe it's appropriate, it's inconsistent with the site plan and not desirable. So to conclude, just for consideration, I understand that with the 3 condominium buildings, there may have been a density commitment. Alternatively, you could consider extending the single detached homes down Hampton Lane and build the second condominium building. This would achieve a density of 28 units instead of 20. And it would not cover near the number of bylaw infractions here. It would not violate the zoning bylaws and would be consistent with keeping this a retirement community. And just as another thought, the builder does have another development in Selwyn, which is Rays Creek. And it's a mixed density now, and maybe the density difference or the yield may be able to be fulfilled within that development. And that's respectfully submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that.
Just take one remark there,
Okay.
Madam Chair, with regard to the height. The height of a building is measured at the highest perimeter point to the peak of the roof. So depending on where you measure, depending on the grade of the property, you could be exceeding the height at one particular measurement if you measure from a lower grade. So again, the height of a building is established from highest perimeter of the grade around the building to the peak of the roof. And that's what would need to meet the 11 meters.
Okay, well, I don't know how to read this. I'm looking at the highest perimeter being 11.38 meters on page A 2.2.2 and 11.31 meters on page A 2.2.3. So that affects the building. And again, that's the townhouse that's immediately beside the existing phase 4 house.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'll let Neil speak to that, but again, I would imagine that elevation is just indicated at that particular spot around the perimeter of the property for reference purposes.
So prior to, through you, Madam Chair, we submitted drawings and an application for minor variance to the planning department, and they followed up with their notification. We read through the notification, identified that height hadn't been captured. We have revisited our drawings, and we believe we can keep all of our buildings under the allowable 11 meters.
Thank you.
I don't know if I may, but I wouldn't mind just making a couple of comments. I think they're valuable for everybody to understand as well. When we put this application in, we're seeking variance so that we can take the standard bylaws that are applicable in the township for building a townhome anywhere in the township. And more specifically, most of those bylaws have been developed with the idea that a building is being constructed on a municipal roadway. In our particular case, had we had the intention of building a townhome right from the beginning, those adjustments would have been made in the special zoning that was put in place for the private development. I believe some people are of the impression that these requests are, to modify what's being done inside the project relative to what was approved for the project, as opposed to the idea that the requests are to modify the standard zoning that would be applicable anywhere in the township when constructing a townhome style building. So it's very important to notice that difference. All of the homes that are constructed within the Lilacs had very specific setbacks, yard allowances, and so on. And they're very particular to that particular development. They're not in line with the standard township guidelines at all. They're specific to the Lilacs project. So what we're requesting today is simply to take a building form which is allowable under the zoning that's already in place, and adjust the setbacks to match the rest of the project so that they're in line with what would have been in place had we done the township or the townhomes in the original proposal. And I think that's an important clarification. I believe based on certainly under the proper impression that in fact on that particular parcel of land, and what's being requested is to simply adjust the guidelines to match the private development as opposed to a municipal roadway.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to Linda Forgy. She online, Deputy Clerk?
Yeah, no, I didn't have any comments. I was just coming in to listen.
Okay, thank you very much. Sandy White.
Hello, yeah, 35 Hampton Lane, and I don't have any questions or concerns at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip Henry.
We'll go on to the next, Madam Chair. I don't think Philip is here, but
All
Linda
right,
is.
Linda Lovewell.
No, I don't have any concerns at this time.
Thank you very much. And John McLean.
Madam Chair, we have Bev Coe, who's just joined us. She was on the list, the first one on the list and wasn't available, but she's here now.
Okay. Bev Coe, can you please give us your address?
Hi, Bev, you're unmuted. Go ahead. We'll move on. I have no one else online to speak to
Okay,
this
John McLean's
application.
not there either.
Pardon me?
John McLean is not there either.
John McLean is to be in person, so I don't believe he's here, and I don't know if
No.
there's anyone else in the gallery. to speak
And
to.
is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor or against? Seeing none, we will bring it to committee. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve A 3623. Moved by Mr. Henry, seconded by Mr. Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have minutes of September the 26th, 2023, moved by Mary Coolis, seconded by John Boyko. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting's December the 12th. Ron Black and Brian Henry, all in favor? That's carried. We take 3 minutes before we begin our council meeting. Thank you. on. Thank you. Good afternoon. This regular council meeting for the Township of Selwyn for Tuesday, November the 28th will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so that council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and are made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will go to the minutes of November the 14th. Can I have someone move them? Councillor Henry, Councillor Koulis, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none, we will go to our deputation. Chief Betts.
Is the mic? Oh, it is active. Fantastic. Thank you. And Madam Mayor, and through you to council, it's my pleasure to be and to here today to join you. I was asked to give a 10-minute or just a brief introduction of who I am as your chief of police, a little bit of a background in case you're not familiar with that, and then a little overview about things here in terms of our policing. So I'll start with a little bit of who I am. I joined policing almost 3 decades ago in York Region, and did most of my policing at York Regional Police, where I was involved in every aspect of policing, from frontline patrol all the way through to investigations, support services, executive services. I was an executive officer to my chief of police. If you can think about something that's unique or fun or interesting about policing, I was either involved with doing it or I was in charge of it. Whether that be enforcing Off-Road Motor Vehicle Act, snowmobiles, I was in charge of an air support unit. We had a helicopter at York Regional Police. Now we have RPAS, remotely piloted aircraft system, significantly smaller and a lot less expensive, but also pretty effective. I was in charge of canine unit, tactical unit. I was in charge of policies, procedures, audits, business analytics. As I said, the executive officer. And when I left York Regional Police, I was in charge of policing for the city of Vaughan. So my station in Vaughan had just as many officers in that one police station as we have in the entirety of the Peterborough Police Service. So that was the size of where I left. And I went to London. I had the opportunity to go to London. I joined London Police Service as deputy chief, and I went in as deputy chief of administration, where I oversaw all the administrative side of policing, your budgeting, your planning, your human resources, IT, communications, that side of things. About partially through my tenure there, as is the case with organizations that have more than one deputy chief, we switch portfolios to get a different perspective, but also a different leadership view to those other half of the organization. So then I took over the operations, where again, I resumed a lot of the experience I had within my support services operations. So that's the work experience in terms of policing. Prior to policing, I did everything from sell vacuum cleaners door to door to train racehorses. I joined policing later in life, so I've had a variety of experiences. The vacuums is really at the one end of fun and not very, I should say, and training racehorses was probably at the other extreme, and then a whole host of things in between. So a variety of experiences. Education-wise, I was just talking to one of the people that was leaving the last meeting. I was an English major. I have my undergrad from York University. I have a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Fredericton. I am currently working on a second master's degree in law in alternative dispute resolution through Osgoode Law School. I'm a certified risk manager with the Global Institute of Risk Management. I'm also a certified change management practitioner, and then a host of other police related courses. So when I come to you as your chief of police, and the reason I bring some of this is I come to you with a ton of experience, but also education to go along with that, because one without the other is kind of a little imbalanced. And I really do believe it's important to have both to bring some of that academia to the practical application of what we do in policing. And then more important for me was the business side of things with the business administration. And that was important to me. So what I do, I approach from a business perspective when I am asking or when I am looking to implement new projects and programs. It's from that perspective in terms of how do we get the best return on investment for what it is that we're looking to implement. So as I prepared here for today, because I was told we're not really looking for a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm perfectly fine with that. I did present or prepare a few things just so you have an idea of a snapshot of what's happening here in this community, in the community of Lakefield. So you've heard me say business analytics is something that I was in charge of at York Regional Police. In fact, I was responsible for bringing that program into York Regional Police, and I had the opportunity to oversee the development of that. I brought that same approach to the London Police Service, and now we're bringing it here to Peterborough. The challenge is resources. As you can imagine, York Regional Police, a lot of resources. London Police, significantly fewer, and now here in Peterborough, fewer yet. So that's always the challenge, but we are making good use of the people that we have, and we've been able to do some work with some of the software, at least that we have within our own suite of things. What I have been able to do is create a series of dashboards. Typically, if I were coming to you today, I would present that to you in live time, so that we could drill down and you could see what was happening in your community in very specific live time demonstrations. And I know Councillor Boyko's had an opportunity to see some of that as in your role as liaison to the Police Services Board. But instead, I went old fashioned and I've just done printouts. So I have done that. And I wanted to look at where do we sit right now? And then so year to date, and where did we sit last year at this time? Where did we sit in 2021? Now, as I said, I have some challenges in terms of resources. One of them is IT. So I can't go back further than 2021. Unfortunately, it's just the limitations of what I have to work with. But it does give me a snapshot to look at and to say, what's keeping us busy here in Lakefield? And then when is it keeping us busy? And what's that volume look like? So if I were to look at year to date this year, and I have 2 pages for each year, I would tell you that so far this year, we have been dispatched, so officers dispatched to 460 calls here in the community. Now, that is actually down a little bit from last year. Last year was busier. Some will say that the perception is things are busier this year than they have been in the past, but in fact, it's actually down. And it's a little down from 2021. Now, the Peterborough area is unique. I should also tell you, I like data, and I was the past chair, although I am currently on the committee, the Police Information and Statistics Committee for the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. So I work very closely with Statistics Canada in a lot of the police reporting. And Peterborough is a bit of an anomaly when it comes to work. During the COVID years, many police services saw a reduction in the amount of work during those 2 years where it was really at the height of COVID and then tailing off into 2022 at the tail end. Peterborough actually went up. Calls for service in the Peterborough area and surrounding area went up, which was a little unusual compared to other police services and other communities. And I haven't quite got my finger on why that is, although I'm narrowing down to the fact that it may be in relation to a lot of the demonstrations and things around COVID and those restrictions, and a lot of the types of calls that generated that weren't generated elsewhere. So here we are at 460 calls. And I can tell you that, not surprisingly, your busiest months here are July and August. Surprisingly, June is less busy than May and less busy than March. Now, maybe that isn't a surprise to you. September as well. Interestingly, the busiest day of the week for us here in this community is Wednesday, which might sound a little bizarre. And we might think weekends. but Wednesday is the busiest day. On the bottom of this sheet, and I apologize, it's a bit distant for you here, is the workload curve as to when those calls for service are coming in. Now, typically through a live demonstration, I would be able to drill in on these and say, okay, what's keeping us busy at that time of day on that day of the week? And this is the type of data analytics that I like to bring to how I approach policing, because it allows us to identify where we should be so that we're in the right place at the right time to do the right thing because we've got the right information. And so you'll quite often hear me talk about that when I do my presentations. So quite frankly, not surprising, we're quite busy, but the busiest time of the day is 2 o'clock in the afternoon so far this year. So Wednesdays for the day of the week, Tuesdays is the least busy this year. Interestingly, Tuesdays was by far the busiest day of the week last year to date, with Wednesday being the least busy. So a little bizarre, and I hadn't actually expected that, to be quite fair. Given the community where we are, I thought weekends would have driven up as population drives up, that we would have seen a busier period of time. I did not have a chance to drive even deeper into specific months to see where we are, but this is the type of information that I can work with to allow us to get to that. So what keeps us busy? Well, perhaps not surprisingly, over the 3 years, it's consistent. The number 1 and 2 things that we're involved with is routine traffic stops and traffic enforcement, which I suspect you would expect given sort of what we're dealing with here in this community. So traffic stops this year account for 88 of the 460 occurrences and 66 traffic enforcement. So our officers have the ability to put themselves on a detail, if you will, to say, we're going to do traffic enforcement at this particular location. Now, you'll be aware that we introduced devices called armadillos into our sort of repertoire of tools that we can use. That will allow us to be more data-driven in terms of how and when we decide where we're going to apply our resources. So in the past, what we've often done is we've said, we've got a community concern. Speeders in my neighborhood, or we get a counselor who says, I'm getting calls, the speeding is out of control, we need to see the police here. And I see some smiles because I know that you get those calls, because quite often I get emails sent to me to say, Chief, what are we going to do about this? So this technology allows us to be able to validate that or not. It's a much more cost-effective way without changing driving behavior. You'll see radar signs change driving behavior because people sometimes will slow down when they see it and they want to make sure that they're not going over the speed limit if they're conscientious. On the flip side, there are many who will speed up just to see how fast they can go on that sign. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it does happen. So traffic enforcement has quite often been driven anecdotally. I've heard that it's fast here. We better set up radar and do some traffic enforcement here. The problem with that is, although it is a high visibility, it may in fact not produce the types of results you might be expecting because the vast majority of people in those areas are already observing the speed limit. So that is something that we want to become a little bit more sophisticated in how we do our approach. And I know we've been sharing that results and that information with Councillor Boyko to bring back to you as well, so that you will know when you're getting those concerns. We only have 2 devices and we apply them throughout the areas where we police. And it helps us over a 2 to 3 week period identify traffic patterns, the number of vehicles going in each direction. It's a 2-way directional. I'm sure you maybe have explained this or not. Okay, so I won't go in and belabor that, but it does give us a good insight as to where to be and when to be, if there in fact even is an issue or a problem. So that's allowing us to maximize the use of our resources and gives us our greatest return on investment. Now, one of the things I really like here in Lakefield is the presence of the small community police station, because we're able to put a police officer here in your community every day. Like, you see that person, they're not driving through the community, they are assigned here. And I think that's important to have that presence in the community, not just as a passer through, but an actual physical person who's here to be with you. And as you know, that factors into our minimum deployment, right? So you'll hear me talk if you pick up on those things. I will often tell people what's our minimum staffing look like during the day, during the evening, and always I say 1 officer goes to Lakefield during the day and at night, and that's just a dedicated resource. Now, you might think that some people in the city of Peterborough would say, well, how come we're paying for that? And I always remind them that Lakefield pays for that and that minimum deployment is factored into that. So I do remind them that that's where that goes. Because quite frankly, we have 11 officers who work during the day pushing a police car, as we call it. They're the ones responding to your 911 calls. And one of those officers is dedicated here. One is dedicated in Cavan Monaghan, because like you, they're also contract. And that leaves the remainder in the city of Peterborough, one of whom is on the desk. So that leaves 88 officers for the other 86,000 people in the city of Peterborough who are in a uniform, driving the streets in a cruiser or on foot downtown. So not the depth of resources that people might think we have within the police service. But I think it's important that people realize that, because we aren't flush with policing resources, but I think we do a pretty darn good job, quite frankly. And I think we've done a pretty good job here. I haven't heard a whole lot of concerns other than usually it's around traffic and traffic enforcement and speed. And so with technology, I think we're a little bit better able to manage where we put those resources. There is something to be said for having a presence in an area, even if it isn't necessarily driving the results you might expect to see. But I do think that if there are concerns about speeding, I'd like us to be able to do that in a very scientific way in terms of how we deploy and approach. So those are the big things. That's a consistent number across all 3 years, year to date. So for a straight on comparison in terms of what we're doing, always traffic, number 1 and number 2. So I'll leave it there because there may be questions and I can flesh out other details along the way. Suffice, may I just say, Madam Mayor, if I can, 2 new initiatives that we introduced in the police service, one called Safer Public Spaces, which does apply here as well, of course. And that is, it was an approach that I have taken to, well, no longer tolerate open air illicit drug use on our streets, in front of our businesses, in our parks, in our playgrounds, in our bus shelters. Those drugs and that drug use has never been made legal here. We don't have an exemption. But I think that out of an abundance of care for those who are addicted, we turned something of a permissive eye to that under the, I think the best intentions that these folks are addicted and they have an illness. Unfortunately, what I believe that has caused is the rest of the community to feel vulnerable when they can't go, or they feel as though they can't go to their parks, their playgrounds, their businesses, because some of these folks are doing that type of activity. So I don't get a lot of complaints, very, very few here, but it is a program that does exist and would be applicable here should we find ourselves in that. Just so you know, we are the only ones doing this in Ontario that have made a declaration that we are doing this. I can tell you that Edmonton is the only other municipal police service, and then the entire province of British Columbia, which had introduced decriminalization of all hard drugs under the 2.5 grams. They had decriminalized that. They've just introduced legislation on the day I introduced my program. They introduced legislation to repeal their previous legislation. And so now they have a safer public spaces approach to the entire province, saying that we don't want people doing this in our playgrounds, our parks, our splash pads, our businesses, and our bus shelters. So I think we are ahead of that curve, and we have definitely taken that approach here. So that's the first initiative. The second one we'll launch in January, and we're calling that Community First. And that is a community-focused investigation and response and support team. And I announced that a few weeks ago. And it's intended to be for officers who are fully dedicated to investigating those low-level, high-frequency property crimes that typically have a low dollar value, but high aggravation value for the people who are victims, the people who are going through cars, the people who are shoplifting, those types of things that often take a back seat to violent crime. Because we do a good job of getting to those violent crimes, but where we really start to struggle is getting to those lower level property crimes. And so we needed to be able to do something to help us generate some activity in that area. And so even as we speak, I have a posting out for officers within my organization right now, and those officers will be in uniform, highly visible, and that is the entire focus of their job, is investigating and responding to property crimes throughout the areas where we police. So I'll leave it at that, I promise, subject to any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Betts. You're always welcome here.
Thank you.
And I can tell you that the residents of the village of Lakefield are very happy with your service. So thank
Great.
you. And I'll open it to questions or comments from council. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chief Betts. Your background comes through very, very visibly as you present and the way you talk about things. The business approach that you're taking to policing is brilliant. And with your January launch of your Community First project, I really like that because it reminds me of the one broken window philosophy and how I think it was Chicago or New York cleaned itself up.
New York
having problems. Thank
Yeah.
you. So yes, looking forward to your continued service for us and what you're going to be doing in the future because it sounds very promising. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Boyko.
I don't have a question, just a comment, and that is to say to the rest of council and to those who may be watching that I think we are well served by our, I still say new chief, although you've been here for quite a while now. With our new chief and with the representation on the board, the way it is set up, there's a Lakefield liaison who is not a voting member of the board, but is there at the board meetings. And anytime that I have raised anything, come up with a question or a problem that has come to my attention or something that I believe needs to be looked at in the village, it is responded to quickly and professionally. And then the data-driven approach that you have seen that the chief has been talking about comes back with the response to whatever the problem is raised. So I wanted to echo what Councillor Henry is saying and what the mayor is saying is that I think we are very well served by the Peterborough Police Service and by the way that the board treats Lakefield on that board through that process. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate
Deputy
it.
Mayor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Betts, for the presentation and the update on everything. You know, you talk about traffic enforcement as being the number one issue, and I think that's the number one issue in the whole township. I spent about 15 years on the OPP board as member of council in the past and provincial appointee. And of course, traffic again in the rural parts of the municipality are also a big challenge. You talk about the armadillo that the city has purchased. We have the Black Cat, which is a similar device that we've used in Smith Ward and Lismore wards over the last probably 3 or 4 years now. So it's absolutely helpful in determining best use of your officers' time when they should be there. But you're right, for the most part, it does provide great information about the fact that there isn't a lot of speeding. There are speeders, there always will be, but the majority of people do respect it. And some of the biggest challenges that we have in the municipality, including Lakefield, there's parts of the built-up areas that don't have sidewalks, so people are walking on the road and shin on the shoulder. And we have a motion later in the meeting to talk about that. But that's part of the challenge. People are walking more, they're walking dogs, they're walking strollers, they're bicycling more, and they're trying to share the road surface, which is often narrow. And without sidewalks or walking surfaces. So we have a lot of issues because of that in itself. But I think the Armadillo is a great way to show people that you know there are speeders, obviously, but majority of folks are recognizing the speed limits and driving them. So thank you for that information today.
So before I ask for a motion to receive your presentation, I have a question. Do you have a question? I'll ask mine and you can ask yours, okay? There are minutes in our package with regards to the Peterborough Police Board. And it mentions that there is going to be a meeting in Lakefield in April. Do you know what time that meeting starts by chance?
So we typically have an in-camera portion of our meetings are at 4 o'clock. And then the public session starts at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yes.
And do you hold the meetings at where do you hold them?
Well, I think because I haven't done one here yet, I'm assuming that the thought is they will hold it right here. If that's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
So that
All
it's
right, well,
centrally
we
located,
gotta-
but our clerk might know better.
Sorry, I think that were making arrangements for one of the halls in
Oh, there you
Wakefield,
go.
actually.
Okay.
So
And
we'll
it would
send
be
those
open to the
details to council so you know when it is, if you want to
Okay.
join in. Yeah.
All right, just make sure we put it in our book. Our books get full pretty quickly.
I just go wherever my calendar tells me to go. So I do appreciate the challenge there. Thank you.
Sadly. All right, Councillor Henry.
Thank you through you, Mayor Sandus. Have you got your sign yet for your police station in Lakefield?
Not yet. Actually, the inspector who's in charge of that has said he's still waiting to hear. So we are waiting for that sign, and we have already ordered the telephone to be able to fasten to the outside of the building. We're waiting on delivery for that. But great question. The answer is no, we are still waiting for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor Clueless, you have a question?
Sure.
Can you repeat the title of those two initiatives that you noted?
Sure. Safer public spaces.
Okay.
And that has to do with the illicit drug use.
Yeah.
And then community first. And first is an acronym, which means focused investigation response support team.
Do you have paperwork existing on that, like reports that we can read where the
Uh,
initiative is going?
Yeah,
Both
so
initiatives?
I have actually got the documentation that I can forward back up through our liaison up to here. Absolutely. And when we did actually release, and in fact, I would invite you to go to the Peterborough Police website, or our YouTube site, because we have recorded my entire press conference on that, where people can hear everything exactly from my mouth, what that is, including a series of questions and answers. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I
so-
did have questions, but I was going to email them to you, but now I'm going to look on YouTube and maybe I'll have more.
Yeah, I suspect you will
Yeah.
find your answers there, but if not, I'm open to any questions that might come up.
Awesome, thank you.
Would you like to receive the presentation? Okay, so moved by Councillor Kula, seconded by Councillor Boyko, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now going into question period. Are there any questions for council? Seeing none, we will move on to our municipal officers and staff reports. And Janice, you're going to be talking about the battery storage proposals.
Yes, thank you very much. I first off would just like to say that this report was a group effort. So I'd just like to thank Ange, of course, and Pear and Gordon Howie, who all provided information for the report. Much appreciated. Gord is with us virtually, I do believe. So if there's any questions for Gord, then he is available to answer. So I think council by this time is probably pretty familiar with the IESO process that's underway, trying to procure some additional capacity in our electricity system. You've had 3 proponents come and present to you with regard to their proposals for the area of the Dobbin transfer station. Of course, that transformer station makes that area very desirable for the battery energy storage proposals. All of the 3 proponents that have made their presentations are qualified or have been qualified through the IESO procurement process and are intending to move forward and submit their proposals. We have provided just a brief outline of each of the proposals within the report for you, just as a bit of a reminder. The report also reviews the planning requirements related to these types of proposals. From a provincial policy perspective, all of the projects would be required to go through a class environmental process. So a lot of the provincial policy issues that we would typically have regard for, they don't really follow the normal processes. They're considered under the environmental assessment process. From our planning document perspective, our official plan and our zoning bylaw does permit these types of uses in these areas, in fact, in all zones. Pre-consultation for our site plan control requirements would be a requirement for each site that is successful through the process. The fire department has reviewed the proposals. I believe they've met with 2 of the proponents and have received a lot of information from the proponents that have led them to conclude that they are satisfied with any questions or concerns that they had. Of course, each proponent has requested from council a municipal support resolution. So that resolution would provide a number of points for their application as it moves through the IESO evaluation process. which is a very prescribed process as I understand it. So it is a competitive process, so those points are meaningful to the proponents. So that's why they've spent the time to have their public consultations, come before council, present their information. They all did come to our management committee as well and present the information at the very outset of their processes as well. So the support resolution is meaningful to them. And we're really at the stage in the process where council would come together and determine which of the proponents you would like to provide that municipal support resolution to. You can provide it to any number of them that you wish, or you can provide it to none of them at all. It's completely up to council. And I guess I would just leave it at that. If there's any questions that we can help in your deliberations, happy to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. So who would like to weigh in first? Councillor Henry.
Thank you through Mayor Senes. Thank you for the report, everyone. The battery storage, or the idea of storing energy in batteries, been doing this for quite a while now, obviously. And with moving forward, to date, our focus has been basically to gather an understanding as to where this could be located, its environmental impacts, and other items that to me appear relatively short-sighted on a project that is going to span 20+ years. And most, well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but some of us might not be here when this project is done. Get carried away. So looking forward, I'm just curious. So at the end game of this project to be decommissioned, possibly after some of our lifetime, I just feel compelled to ask, what is the end game? How does it work for decommissioning? What have other such projects done and learned from the decommission process? Or is this too new to confirm? And without this confirmation, should we put a condition in place as a site plan control that requires a deposit or bond levy on such projects to be held in trust? And if so, what amount would be satisfactory to council to ensure the protection of our environment when it comes time to decommission those?
Would like to weigh in on this.
Yeah, so I think we'd have to take that back and consider whether or not that's something that we can do through our site plan process. There are circumstances where the municipality can take deposits. It's typically more related to when there's to be improvements on public lands. And if those improvements, or as part of a development application where there ultimately could be a public impact if the improvements aren't completed. So we'd really have to think through in terms of our site plan control process, whether or not that would be a condition that we could impose.
All right.
Through your worship too, I'll just add too that the class environmental assessment process, I believe from memory that there is a section that deals with the fact that a proponent needs to address decommissioning within their class environmental assessment. Okay. So there will be a procedure to follow once they get to, if they don't renew the project, and then to safely remove those battery packs from the site.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Blunt.
Thank you to you, Mayor Senes. I think in general, I'm in favor of these types of projects moving forward. I think it's the future, least costly way to add electricity to the grid at a fair and reasonable cost. My biggest concern about this is I know there's 3 applications, and currently the Dauphin station couldn't support all 3 of them, but could with upgrades down the road. We're changing the nature of the area. It's a farm area. One farm's been taken over for the solar panel farm already. It is some of the best farmland we have in the township. As we go further north, we hit the Granite Ridge, and we don't have a lot of great farmland up there. So that's another it's another piece of farmland, most productive farmland we have. Being taken. So, and there are also a number of single family homes in the area that are going to be surrounded potentially by these types of industrial developments, and that's what they are. So I do have some concerns around use of good farmland, for some of them. And also that the residents in the areas, their property values are certainly being, affected, by these things, and whether there's something that we could put in, our motion that, supports, those residents, either their properties being, expropriated or whatever for part of the project. So they can, get fair market value for, their home, because it is affecting those homes, and, these things weren't there when they moved there. So, we're making changes to the use, the area, basically. I don't think this will be the end of those types of projects that come around that station. It's just the start of it. So, I think we have to be cognizant of the use of good farmland and keeping those developments, to the smallest footprint, possible. And as well as consideration for the residents that are going to be most affected by, those installations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Coles.
Through you, this is a question for Gord, for the fire. If something negative happened with one of the battery packs and they were on fire for a while, what does that emergency response look like? And how will it affect the local constituents there?
Hi, Gord, can you unmute?
No, I unmuted once and I will have to do it again. So through you, Mayor Sennis, so we've met with the two and actually got an email an hour ago from Northland Power, so we'll meet with them next week. But they did answer all our questions and all our concerns quite well. And the way the whole system is set up, with at least the two of them, and we'll see with the third one, that it's going to be much the same as we deal with the Dobbin plant now. Is if we get called the Dobbin plant, we are to wait outside until hydro officials show up, and then they will guide us what they need done and everything else. So these systems will be the same. We're kind of happy with the way we're into the second and third generation of the best programs that have been around the countryside. So if there's a fire there, hopefully it will stay connected to just one unit. And, you know, again, too, I think Council, you've heard pretty decent ideas and information from them that it's going to be well looked after. So it's, if they do, it's a smoke problem. And we don't know where it's going in the future. And again, it's all these battery systems are all new. So, but they answered our questions. We're happy with them. Councillor Callisto.
Follow up, through you. How long, if they were to catch fire, how long do they burn? Because I'm just wondering if the residents can stay in the area while you're monitoring it.
Yeah, again, it's like any other fire, you know, there's a lot of nasty smoke in any fire, and this is probably just as bad or worse. So I'm thinking the size of the units, I'm not sure how long they're going to burn. We're all kind of learning, even with the new electric cars, that we're not sure. We watch everything on YouTube, and it's hours mostly. Hopefully not days and weeks, but yeah, hopefully there's ways to mitigate this in the future. So
I have another follow-up. It's not for Gord, but thank you, Gord, for your answers. With Peterborough just down the road and with those massive subdivision development there, what are the consequences of us, or sorry, I shouldn't say consequences. Have there been discussions between us and Peterborough about this project? Or do we need to have those conversations if they haven't happened?
No, we have not had any conversation with the city of Peterborough around the proposals that have been brought forward to us. I think the one thing I was going to comment with regard to your question to Gord, I think the way that the battery storage systems are designed, they're designed to enclose and keep a fire within one unit within the unit. So from what I understand, the fire department has been satisfied with that type of design, that it does provide a fairly significant level of protection to the site in terms of a fire.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna weigh in here, whether we support these or not, that some of them can go ahead through the IESO. The Peterborough Utilities Group is a local group. I think they gave the best presentation. I think that they are not taking up farmland. They would be located on the Lily Lake Solar Farm property. So if there was any of them that I felt I could support, it would be the Peterborough Utilities Group. And I don't know what the rest of council feels about that, but that's the direction I'd be going. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sennis. Definitely would agree with everything that you just said. The presentation was the best, but also clearly illustrates the respect for the environment and farmland by having agricultural practices happening on it, which is very impressive. None of the other organizations looked at that as well. Some of these other battery storage companies are located in places like Texas and that. So we saw how long it took Chief Joplin just to be able to get on through our Zoom meeting here. I'd hate to see what happens if there is a fire. So yeah, I would definitely support the local initiative here for sure. I do have a question though. As there's been talks of annexation of different lands in different communities as coming down from the province and mayors having certain powers. Is there any chance that that property, once developed and is generating revenues for our township, could be annexed out and we would lose those monies?
I guess we can never say never to anything like that. In the short term, would I see that area as a specific area of interest? I don't think so, but things change over time, and someday it may be part of the city of Peterborough. I can't say that would never happen. I don't think that would be a prime area of consideration currently.
Councillor Boyko.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sennis. The point that you made about the Peterborough Utilities Group, and I think Councillor Henry echoed it. I agree that of the three, that presentation and that plan is the one that I would support. And so I'm not making the motion yet because there should be more discussion if more discussion is warranted, but I would certainly support council lending its support to that application.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you to you, Your Worship. Just from a process point of view, our motion could show a preference to the PUS application versus the other two, and allow the IESO to do an evaluation on all three of them. I think I just don't want to stop the process or stop. Where's our authority and where is it? We
Right.
ask for preference of the three.
The way it works is you either provide a municipal support resolution or you don't. So if you were to provide the municipal support resolution for the PUI project, they would get the additional points as part of their project proposal evaluation through IESO. The other two proponents could proceed with their application and their proposal. They just wouldn't have those points allocated to them as part of the evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it now. Thank you.
All right, well, I am looking for Councillor Henry. What are we doing? Just allow me to speak.
I don't know, but I want to get it done. Through you, Mayor Sennis. Motion I'd like to put through is that we show support for Peterborough Utilities. That would assist with the RFP process, which gives us a better chance of seeing them get it. So yeah, a motion.
Okay.
I will second that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Boyko. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that there's a form resolution, so we would put the wording exactly around your resolution that reflects that format.
Yeah, but you were looking for direction, so.
Yeah. That's
So
perfect. Thank you.
this isn't a motion then, is that?
Oh,
what
no,
you're
that's
saying?
correct. I just wanted to make it clear that it would be probably a page-long resolution that you're gonna
Right.
see in the minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so you're still okay with that?
Thank you.
And
Yes,
are you-
now that we know what we're doing.
Okay. And did I call the vote? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Right. We'll move on to the waste audit report, and Lily Morrow is going to be talking to us.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today I'm bringing forward a report on the 2022 waste audit that was completed at the Smith landfill. Just to briefly summarize my report, in 2020, a service delivery review was done at the landfill, and it recommended that we look at completing a waste audit to understand the composition of waste that's being brought into the landfill for disposal. It's important to understand the types of material being brought into the site so that we can look for ways to increase waste diversion. Of the waste that was audited, about 45% of the material was classified as divertible. So that is material that could be diverted if a waste diversion program, exists. And that includes items like construction and demolition waste, recyclable materials, and textiles. 55% of the material was non-divertible. So that is waste that is garbage and will ultimately end up in the landfill. And that includes things like non-recyclable plastics and materials or non-reusable textiles. So based on the results of the audit, there were a number of recommendations included in that report, specifically centered around some of the waste categories that we saw had the largest amount of waste in the audit, including our construction and demolition waste and bulky plastic items. Staff worked together to create action items associated with those recommendations, and those are outlined in the implementation plan. Many of those action items are focusing on increasing waste education and awareness around waste diversion, which we do intend to do through a waste marketing campaign next year. Other action items include exploring the addition of new diversion programs at the landfills, such as looking at opening a reuse center. Staff intend to bring a report back to council in 2024 to look at a reuse center in more detail, and that will include looking at the associated costs and operating procedures before it would be implemented at the landfill. So based on feedback from council today, staff would begin implementing the action items associated with the 2022 waste audit, except for the reuse center, which, as I mentioned, would be brought back for further consideration by council. So that's all I'll say in regards to the report, and happy to take any questions.
Sure. Any questions of Lily? Deputy Mayor Blunt.
Through you, Your Worship. Thanks for the report, Lily. It's an excellent report. I think you give us a good picture of what's going on in the landfill site, and I think we also have to recognize with this report that our property garbage doesn't go there; it goes to the Bedford site. So it's all driven in. It's a lot of stuff that comes from spring cleaning, brush, all those sorts of things that typically aren't picked up at the roadside. So the study is a little bit different than a normal landfill, I guess. There is some household that gets brought in, obviously, but it is a little different for sure. One of the things that I had some experience with is getting rid of mattresses. In the last 6 months, we did a bit of house cleaning, and used to be able to bring mattresses to the landfill site a number of years ago. It's no longer available. The county charges $20 per piece, so a bed set is $40, plus about $10 worth of gas to get down to Bedford from Young's Point. So very expensive disposal, $50 basically it costs to get it down there. And when I look at the trailer full of mattresses that were there when we got there, these 40-foot trailers or 60-foot trailers, there's literally hundreds of pieces in there at $20 a piece. So I just wanted from why, number one, why, you may not have the history there, why did we stop doing it? Because just from an environmental point of view of dragging that one particular item that our landfill doesn't take, takes everything else. We can even do electronics out of the normal season when we have the county has their depot there. It's the only item that people have to cart all the way down to Bedford. And for me, that trailer has about $3,000 worth of mattresses in it. So I don't know, from a financial perspective, it can't be that big of an issue. But anyways, that's just one item there that I think people have asked me over the years, why do I have to drag it all the way down to Bedford and just worry about more of them getting thrown in the ditch.
Is that a question?
That's a question. Why don't we do mattresses anymore? Yeah.
You're really digging at my memory. But the program that's there, they would have to pay for those mattresses to be removed from that site. So it's not as if they're making, I don't know exactly how they have their fees established, but I don't think it's a full revenue source because they're paying to have those materials, the mattresses, taken away from the site. Because you do not want a landfill mattress. They just take up too much. They make up too much, take up too much space. So I believe at the time when that program was put in place, we were asked to ensure that all mattresses were diverted to Bensford in order to support that program. And I believe that all municipalities in the county did take that approach.
Follow up, Mayor. Well, we did do it at one point because there was a trailer there that we were doing it. Yeah, I'm not aware of whether it's a recyclable, if it's revenue generating or it's cost generating, obviously, so. I just know,
Yeah,
I just know that trailer's got about $3,000 worth of revenue in it when it leaves that site wherever it goes, so.
Yeah, for sure. I believe it is a recycling program, and you're absolutely right. The mattresses did used to go into
The trailer on site that,
No.
I think only one summer was there. Cause I remember taking them in
Yeah.
the trailer.
maybe that was during a transition period or something, but beyond that, previous to this program, they were definitely went to landfill. Yeah.
I think it's worth looking at again. Again, we have a large volume of residents in this area and we're the furthest, some of the furthest away from Bensford as far as dragging everything down there. Not everybody has the ability to do that either, so. We take another look at that as part of the review.
Sure, we can get some more information on the program for sure. I think another option that people often have is that when they get their new mattress delivered, they can have their old one taken away by the person who sold them the mattress. So I think, you know, maybe that's something we could promote as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Koulis.
Through you, just kind of a follow-up to that, even if we don't have the station 100% of the time at our location, when we have the waste management station come in on, is it Wednesdays and Thursdays during the summer, or Wednesdays and Saturdays during the summer? Is it possible to have something like that once a month at the same time? Or I'm just wondering if those conversations have happened for mattresses as well.
Are you referring to the household hazardous?
Yeah, the
waste?
household, when they come in, I know it's a separate program, but I'm just wondering if a similar program could happen once a month, even just during the summers for residents. As like a transfer station or something.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something we would have to ask the county. Currently, the household hazardous waste is operated by the county as well. So we'd have to ask that question.
Sure. Because my understanding would be, we still be supporting them. We'd just be creating a connection point.
Right. So in transportation, storage and transportation can pose quite a barrier in those types of circumstances. Yeah.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanos. I'm assuming that Deputy Mayor Black, we're looking at how can we generate some revenue? So rhetorically, that I'm kind of going in the same direction, whereas we do offer metal recycling at the landfill, which clearly would make revenues off when it's driven in on tipping fees. And then we sell the metal, I'm assuming, to the metal recyclers. Yet right across the road, I can dump my metal for free, as probably all of us have done. What would happen if we move the metal bin down to the free area? Would that hurt? Like, they don't pay tipping fees on it when they come in, but we still make money off the metal. Can we put the other 3 bins that are operating out of business and we get the revenue for the township? That didn't come up quite the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, so we operate our landfill site in accordance with an environmental compliance approval that's issued through the ministry. So anything that we do has to be in accordance with that approval. I'll leave that at that.
Councillor White.
Thank you for your report, Lily. I'm looking at the notion of the reusable items, a proposed reuse center at the landfill. And I noticed it's there for 2025, which means in 2024, we're starting to look at it with respect to budget and everything else. So are you talking there about the creation of a building in which things will be placed? So maybe you could just explain, what do you mean by a proposed reuse center at the landfill?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So neighboring municipalities have implemented reuse centers, Trent Lake, Sturrow-Dummer. I believe they all have some sort of structure that they house the materials in. I think we've had some conversations about what that could look like, but I think part of bringing a report back for consideration in 2024 is going to outline where that reuse center would go at the landfill, what sort of structure we would be looking at potentially purchasing to house that material. So all of those details and costs would come back to council for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I believe did the Spencer have a reuse as well? They call it Bensford Byway or something? They had
I'm not sure what it's called. It's very small.
Yeah.
But yes, they do have a small reuse center there.
Yeah, I know that we had a member of council that used to ask about that all the time and actually enjoyed going to the landfill, so we'll leave it at that anyway. So is council in favor of going forward with this implementation? Okay, I need a motion. Councillor Henry, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Our council meeting schedule for 2024, Tanya.
Hi, council, through you, Madam Chair. It's hard to believe that we're doing the 2024 schedule. Like, I feel like we just did 2023. So in terms of the regular meeting and the special meetings for budget, they follow the same, very similar timeline as they have in previous years. So council shouldn't notice any major changes with that at all. But in terms of our town hall meeting, we are looking for some feedback from council. So based on past resolution, council did request that the town hall meetings circulate from ward to ward. So this coming year, we're looking at hosting it at the Ennismore meeting room at the complex. And so you noted that I did put some dates, some proposed dates in there, but those are not going to work. So email out to council requesting 3 new dates of either June 6th, June 15th, or July 6th. So we're just looking for some feedback from council to see what works for council members. Again, it's in Ennismore this year, and looking at 2 June dates or July date. And we're going to pick just one that would work for council members.
Is it June 8th?
June 6th?
Which is a Thursday.
Okay, maybe I wrote that down wrong. Then it would be Saturday the 8th.
Yeah. Okay, so June the 8th, 15th, or July the 6th. So what does council prefer? Councillor Colas.
I just want to clarify, what are the festivals dates in the summer?
So the July 13th, I believe, conflicted with jazz.
Okay.
I'd have to get the date on Shamrock. Give me a second.
It'll be
the weekend after.
I just wanted to make sure for that weekend, because I know there was some back and forth about community festival dates.
Yeah.
I personally would prefer July. I think it's just better because people are coming and going June. July would be too busy, I think, for staff.
So June the 8th?
Either is open for me. I just wanted to state that.
Okay, well, let's pick one. I know there's 2 dates in June.
I'll put forward a motion that we go for June 8th.
June the 8th. Okay.
June the 8th. Okay, June the 8th for the town hall in Ennismore. And then, of course, the resolution does request the adoption of all of our council meeting dates for 2024.
All right, Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the times for the budget meetings are at 9 a.m. and they're on Thursday mornings. Councillor Boyko and I play hockey Thursday morning. Very important to our mental health. Could we move those meetings to the regular start time of 1 from all of our other council meetings?
Jeepers, for years and years, it's been.
Yeah, so 1 o'clock as opposed to 9 a.m.
What dates are these now?
November 21st, December 12th, January 3rd.
This next year.
And February 11th. All the upcoming meetings.
So let me look and see if it else.
All the upcoming budget meetings we're missing hockey on this year.
I hate them.
Gotta stay healthy.
Priority,
What happens if the hockey schedule changes?
yeah.
No, it doesn't. We're locked in, Mike's locked us into 9:30 to 11 on Thursday morning.
Sorry, can you confirm that's Mike Richardson?
Yes.
Is it to do with
Who's
this?
not present today?
Councillor
Perfect.
Coolus.
I just want to clarify too, that with the special, like, not all these are special meetings, right? Or are they all
Yeah.
special
The
meetings?
budget meetings
They
are.
are special,
Consider it
okay.
special meeting, yeah.
And my understanding is in the morning we get food. So are you gonna buy us food if
Yeah.
we don't get it in the
Exactly.
afternoon?
Dozen donuts.
No, it'll be lunch.
I'm open for anything, whatever works, but just to remind ourselves that it is a special meeting versus a regular meeting.
Well, council, much your pleasure.
I'll move into one.
So you're, just to be clear, you're requesting that the November 21st,
December 12th.
December 12th and January 30th special council meetings
Yeah,
be,
fourth one's at 1 o'clock.
right, commence at 1 o'clock.
Right, moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Coolus, that these meetings on the 21st, 12th and 30th begin at 1. All in favor? It's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're darn right. Yeah. All right, we're moving on to consent items. Is there anything anyone wants pulled? Councillor Boyko,
I would like to pull 5A.
5A, which is.
Angie's report
I
on
gotcha. Yeah,
accessibility. Yeah.
that's it.
Yep.
Anyone else? All right, let's go to 5A first. And what would you like? Why did you pull it?
Okay, just a couple of questions for clarification. And I sent these questions to Angie, and I just thought it would be worthwhile to talk about in a public meeting. It says at one point that the site plan, the word is as required. So the accessibility committee would weigh in as required. Who is the one that determines that it's required? Who determines it? Is it the committee that determines that we should weigh in, or is it legislation? Who decides that it is required?
Yeah, so site plan review is required under the Planning Act, so section 41 of the Planning Act. So whenever the the planning department receives an application for a site plan under section 41, and the applicable components require a review by the Accessibility Advisory Committee, it then gets sent to us. So the typical process is an application comes in, the planning department sets up a folder, and they look at all the agencies that are required to comment on the site plan. So there's a checklist of a number of organizations, and then if we, if it meets that checklist, then it's sent to the committee for review.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And so just to follow up through you, Mayor Senas. So this applies to a I hate to call it simple, but a small site plan. But it would also apply to a plan of subdivision for something that could be much larger. Am I correct?
Well, there'd be, in a plan of subdivision, there'd be a couple of different components. So if there are in a subdivision plan, if there are site plan requirements within that meet section 41, the committee would look at those. In addition to that, though, the committee is also provided, like through the terms of reference, with the ability to comment on other things outside of site plan section 41 requirements. So that could be like a streetscape component as well. So it would really depend a little bit on the nature of the plan of subdivision.
Okay, thank you. One more follow-up, and there's another section that talks about new construction, and it references Ward Street, the Ennismore CIP, and a couple of others. And that is fine. That means that the committee weighs in on new builds, if I can call it that. Has it ever been discussed at the committee, or is it even appropriate at the committee, that the committee looks at not only new builds, but current practices? I'm talking about things like snow plowing that could be done in a different way, therefore increasing accessibility to a particular area.
Yeah, so the committee does have the ability to comment on proposed changes to a township policy or a practice if that comes forward from council. Council can also ask the committee to look at anything that they wish to as well, if you wanted them to. But generally, when we bring forward a policy change that has an accessibility consideration, we would bring that forward to the committee for comment.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So, would you like to move 5A? Councillor Boyka?
Sure.
And
Yes.
Second. Councillor Koulis, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And the balance of the consent items, and then to move those, please. Councillor Koulis and seconded by Councillor Henry, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. This moves us down to other new and unfinished business. And Councillor Boyka, you had something you wanted to bring forward?
I do, and there's two things. One is there's a notice of motion with the sidewalk and pedestrian policy, and I noticed that a new one has arrived on my desk, and we could take a look at that. But the one thing that I would like to bring up first, if we could, because I think it'd be much quicker, is that has come to my attention about the pop-up vendor survey that has gone to a number of businesses and others in Selwyn. And I wonder if I could ask a couple of questions about that, just so that we can, again, have a public airing of what is happening here. So perhaps Angie, you could tell us about this pop-up vendor survey. Why is it being done? What was the initiative that we say we should have this survey, and how is it being done? And what is the cost of this survey? And what is the cost of the consultant to have this done? So why, how, and the cost?
So you'll recall when we brought forward the changes to the refreshment vehicle bylaw, council asked us to take a look at a component that would be part of that bylaw potentially for the ability to have vendors be present at some of our township properties. So that was the why. The cost, that there's actually no additional cost. This work is being done through Structure Harrop. You'll remember that we did the revenue, and I'm going to get the name of it wrong, but we had the revenue generating strategy that we brought forward to council. They did that work for us. As part of that project, they also agreed to do an additional project for us. So this is the project that they're working on for us. So they're doing some investigation around the idea of pop-ups. There's other models out there in Ontario, so they're doing some of that work, and they are coordinating the survey component for us currently. So they developed the survey. We've provided a list to them based on our business e-newsletter. So we have a lot of businesses that subscribe to our e-newsletter. We've added to that list just based on the information we know in terms of the businesses that operate in the community, as well as a number of other associations and clubs and so on. So there's a little over 200 on that list. So those groups were emailed directly with a copy of the survey. We also gave Structure Harrop the list of vendors who participated in our Jazz and Art Festival in the past. And we also sent it to the Lakefield Farmers Market and asked them to send it to their vendors. So we're trying to get some perspective from vendors who would actually, come to a pop-up market or participate in a pop-up market. So then our next phase is to actually get some information or some feedback through the same survey from the general public and anybody else who might be interested in doing that. So that's taking place in December, and you'll see that in our e-newsletter coming up in December, and on our social media accounts and on our website.
Excellent. Follow up if I could. There's a number of links in the survey, and if you click on the links, one in Belleville, one in Port Carling, one in Toronto, I think a couple of others, and it talks not only about food trucks, if I can call them that, but also clothing, retail. There's one, Lululemon has a pop-up thing in Port Carling, for example. Are we Are we considering pop-ups such as that, or are we still talking only about food vehicles? And I'm just hoping no one is
Yeah,
thrown by
no, the
that.
original intention when we brought this forward was not just for food. There might be other retailers, like startup businesses in our community that maybe don't have a brick and mortar location. Maybe they're operating as a home-based business and they want to kind of get out there and get it there in front of the public and let people know what types of things are selling.
Okay, and one final question, I promise, through you, Mayor Sands. When we're talking about a pop-up, the pop-up tends to, at least in my mind, I will just personalize this. A pop-up is like the farmer's market's there for Thursday. A pop-up is the Jazz and Art or the Shamrock is there for one day. Are we doing this survey to talk about a 1 day, 2 day, weekend? Or are we talking about someone who have a pop-up that would not just pop up, but pop at the beginning of season in May and then stay popped until end of the summer?
Yeah. So
In a particular location.
Sure. So again, you're like Janice, you're testing my memory here. I'm sure the questions do ask for that kind of feedback. So what kind of pop-up would you like to see? Just as you suggested, and there will be an option to, check off a number of different things, which would be like the 1 day, they're all summer, they're all year.
Okay. I promise that was the last question, but I'm breaking my promise. Is there a place on the survey where it could say, I don't want to have any pop-ups?
I don't know if that's a specific question, but we always have a general comment section so people can let us know if they don't like it at all.
So the question is, what pop-ups would you like to see? As opposed to, would you like to see them?
Sorry, I don't want to answer that specifically, John. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
So
Okay. Very good.
yeah, you can take the questionnaire. You'll get the link. So
okay,
you can follow.
Will
along.
the link be sent to each of the councillors so we can see?
You all get the link
see
for
it in
the
the
newsletter? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be there, but we can send it to you separately as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think going forward, when a survey is going out to multiple groups, that it might be worthwhile to give council a heads up that it's going out, so that if we start to receive feedback, we're well aware of what it's all about, because I haven't actually seen the survey either. I don't know if the rest of council has.
Yeah, no, council hasn't seen the survey directly. It was sent directly to the businesses. That was kind of our first phase.
My point.
Absolutely. Yep.
Question from Councilor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sennis. I'm gonna take a guess that obviously council is not reading the e-newsletter. If we did, we'd be further ahead.
It'll be in the December newsletter. So
thank you.
You didn't miss it.
Yeah, I'd like it to be seen by us prior to, not in the midst of, or, yeah.
Yeah, so when we're sending out the surveys, we can let you know that the survey is being sent out, so you know what's happening.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. All right. All right, is there any other new business before we get to our notice of motion here? Seeing none, John.
Okay, thank you. This motion comes from the pedestrian infrastructure considerations report that was presented to council on November 14th. And as you recall, we said there's really two parts to this report. Let's deal with the Water Street sidewalk issue, and then let's deal with the sidewalk policy. So
can I stop you for just a second?
Sure.
Is there a seconder for this motion to put on the table? Deputy Mayor Black. Okay, sorry. No, well, he can talk about that for a minute, and then I'll talk about the.
Okay, so you'd like me to move my motion first and then we'll
No,
discuss it?
you can chat about it, and then I'm gonna ask if you can amend it.
Okay. So you asked me to move the motion, and now you're saying let's chat about it first?
It's just on the table right now for discussion.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, basically what this is doing, what the purpose of the motion is to do is so that we do establish a sidewalk policy because that is something that we said we would do in our strategic plan, and we would do as part of our climate goals. So therefore, where it's said in and these are in the whereases, I won't read them because they're there in front of you, but it said that in our climate goal that we would develop a consistent sidewalk requirements and guidelines. So we're meeting that. It says in our strategic plan to foster a healthy and engaged and connected community, and sidewalks will do that. And also, I think it is our responsibility to do what we can to create a safe and healthy environment in our community for all of our citizens. So therefore, it's something that we should be doing. So therefore, I believe that the only real change that we are making from the report that we received on November 14th to this notion is that we are saying that the staff report said that multi-use paths and sidewalks are installed within a road allowance, and in the township case are considered in our urban and semi-urban areas. And what this motion is saying is that sidewalks will not be just one of a list of considerations, that it will be the default position. There will be a sidewalk, and I'm seeing what the amendment is saying, but in urban areas, there will be sidewalks. It's knowing that there are certain circumstances where a sidewalk is not feasible, a sidewalk can't be done, or it shouldn't be done. That's fine. But the default position is in a urban area where a new build is happening or where a reconstruction is happening, there will be sidewalks unless there's very good reasons why not. The second part of this goes a little bit beyond what the November 14th report did, and it comes from something that Deputy Mayor Black was talking about, and we discussed with respect to 6th line, and that is that when it is possible, that we should do what we can to widen the roadway so that pedestrian traffic, cycling is possible in a safe way. We never used to think about these things, but as Deputy Mayor Black has been saying, things are changing. People are walking more, cycling more, exercising more, jogging more, and so therefore we need to change the way we do things, and that is part of what this motion is doing as well. So that's a general discussion of the purpose of the motion and what it is really doing with respect to November 14th staff report.
So I have provided council with an amendment, and I don't know if the mover and seconder are willing to support the amendment, but I will tell you why I have provided it. So I would like to note that I believe that we all agree that where it makes sense, we want to plan for pedestrian infrastructure. I also like to note that we currently plan for sidewalks on one side of the street in plans of subdivision in urban areas. I don't want residents to think that a lack of a policy results in no consideration for pedestrians. This is not the case. This version gets council to the same result without setting up a public expectation that the township can or will provide for sidewalks or widen road surfaces in all cases. There are areas in the township where these things are not feasible given the circumstances. And I'll use Chemung Park and Bridge North as an example. You could never fit a sidewalk on Peterborough Avenue. It doesn't make sense to create a policy that states the municipality will do something that we know from the very start we cannot be consistent with. The proposed amendment ensures sidewalks and widened road surfaces would be considered in all circumstances, while recognizing that it is not always feasible and providing for an appropriate tool to make an informed decision based on the merits of each circumstance. The amended motion is as follows. All the whereas paragraphs remain the same. There's no change there. And therefore staff present to council Selwyn Township sidewalk and pedestrian safety policy that 1, establish the sidewalks on one side of the road as the standard for all streets in urban areas that are newly constructed within a plan of subdivision, and I'm adding with limited exceptions. You cannot put a sidewalk on a cul-de-sac. the sidewalk would end up at the front porch in some cases, so there's no point in even going there. Number two, for new expanded, replaced or reconstructed township streets, this was not stated, and we're talking about township streets here, within an urban developed area, and this is where it changes a bit, requires the completion of a checklist of considerations related to the best pedestrian infrastructure to determine the need for and feasibility of installing a sidewalk on one side of the road. So we're ensuring that everything is looked at to be able to put that sidewalk on the one side of the road. Number three, establishes that rural road reconstruction, and in brackets, I've got township roads again, to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about, because we're not going there with the county roads. And resurfacing includes a widening of the road surface to allow more space for pedestrians and cyclists. And then I've got in there where possible, because there are going to be times where environmentally, cost-wise, if they're just too narrow, you can't widen. And so there's no point in giving the expectation to the public that we're going to do this, because you know yourself, if we have this in writing, people are going to demand. And the third point in the original motion is stricken because we've dealt with it in the second part of the amendment. So I don't know if the mover and seconder are willing to take this amendment. I'm doing it not to circumvent. If you do accept it, you have moved and you have seconded it, even though I've done the amendment. So
As the mover, yeah, I accept this absolutely. And basically what you've done is taken point 3 that I wrote.
Yeah.
That says, but you can't do it all the time. There are exceptions. We talked about County Road 6 and Adam said last week, well, you can't widen it here for this reason and that reason. So absolutely, what has been done with this amendment is you've taken the third point from my motion and basically shifted it into 1, 2, and 3, which is just fine. It's a rewording and it hits all of the points that I think are important. So I will absolutely accept this as amended motion.
and a seconder.
Yeah, through Mayor, I will accept the amended motion. And again, I think, you know, your points are well taken around expectations. Clearly, there are circumstances that don't make it feasible from a construction or environmental or cost perspective. And I think we recognize that in our original motion as well, that, you know, but
This makes it clear.
Yeah, a well-worded motion is better. And just to make it clear, we want that to be a priority to be looked at. If it can't be done, then there'll be good reason why it can't be done, as opposed to the other way of saying we're not going to look at it until we're asked to look at it. We're asked to look at it every time.
That's right.
All right, thank you. And Councillor Coates.
I just have I have a couple of clarification questions that staff might, I think, can weigh in on. What is meant by urban? Like, how are you defining urban in this policy? Like urban areas is the main thing I'm looking
Yeah, so I think the intention is that the policy would be brought back for council to consider that, and we would define that. I think that generally the way we describe our urban areas are probably as defined in the official plan. So we've got like our hamlet areas, so Lakefield, Bridge North, Hamlet of Ennismore, Hamlet of Youngs Point, and the little bit we have in Buckhorn.
I just want to clarify, those will be like clearly fleshed out in this policy. And then the second part, I think you've already stated, I think you're going to bring this forward, but I'll state it here anyways. But I just want to clarify, if this is the rule going forward, that we're always going to be considering this and before it comes to us, is it staff who are adhering first and foremost to following these directions? Like council isn't coming in onto this conversation at all, right? So anything with a road, I assume would go to Adam first in the building department, or I shouldn't say building, but like site plan related. Like you're going to be the first ones looking at this before anybody else, if it's put into place.
Yeah. So when council adopts the policy, then we take that policy as staff. And when we're looking at projects or when we've got plans of subdivision coming forward or other development, that's our marching orders. Yeah.
I just want to clarify for Boyko and, sorry, Councillor Boyko and Deputy, I'm so sorry, I'm tired. maybe we shouldn't have 1 PM meetings. Are you expecting to come in onto these conversations earlier in the process?
No,
Okay.
no, this
I
is
just
establishing
wanna
a
make sure.
policy. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, thank you very much.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you through you, Mayor Stennis. John, I know that this is, thank you for bringing forward this motion, Councilor Boyko, and I know that this is something that you're passionate about as well with sidewalks. And I do like the way that this has been amended with the friendly amendment. Do we already do this? I'm just wondering like if this is
We
kind of
don't have a policy.
Yeah, we do,
redundant.
pretty much. But having it in writing, I guess, is in writing. Yep.
Thank you. And yes, when it comes to defining our urban areas, like I understand we have to take walkers and cyclists into consideration. On any given day that I drive to a council meeting, I pass tractors, cyclists, walkers, four-wheelers, side-by-sides, and horses. I hope they are not all going to need laneways moving forward. Thank you.
Good point. All right, so I will now call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have a special meeting, December the 14th. Additional agenda item is a term review, organizational structure and policy framework. So that's just to be noted, or do you need a motion to add it?
It's a special meeting, so typically at special meetings, we only deal with what council has added to the agenda, and that isn't an item that's on the agenda typically for this meeting, so.
Just for information.
No, we would need a resolution to
Oh,
add
you
that
do?
item to the
Okay.
agenda, yeah.
All right, so I need someone to move that to be added to the agenda. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Koulis, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. Our bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Sure. So we have 2384. It's an authorizing bylaw for a mitigation measures agreement. This is a condition of a consent application in Ennismore.
Okay, so I need someone to move that. Hands up all at once. Council Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Boyko, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Confirming bylaw is Councillor Koulis, seconded by Councillor Henry, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. And no motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Henry, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.